She went for a routine checkup, but ended up pregnant with a millionaire's baby by mistake and now. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into this incredible story. It's one that will leave you questioning fate and destiny. Our story begins in a routine doctor's office, somewhere in the heart of the city. Lily had no idea that what seemed like an ordinary checkup would change her life forever. Lily had always been a hard-working woman, with a full plate. She had just wrapped up a long week at her job at a local cafe, and was now taking time out of her busy schedule to get a checkup, something she had been putting off for months. She was just 26, healthy, and felt no need for any concern. But life had other plans. She entered Dr. Alexander's office, a well-known, successful doctor who had a reputation for his no-nonsense approach. She had heard of him, but never had the chance to meet him in person. The moment she stepped into his office, the smell of antiseptic and the faint hum of fluorescent lights filled the air, setting the stage for what was to come. Dr. Alexander was everything she imagined. Tall, with sharp blue eyes, and a commanding presence. He greeted her with a warm smile, though his demeanor was professional, almost too professional. Lily felt a slight unease but shrugged it off, thinking it was just nerves. After all, it was just a checkup. Nothing too special. The routine examination began. The blood pressure check, the heart rate, the usual things she'd gone through a dozen times before. But then, Dr. Alexander suggested some additional tests, saying there were some irregularities in her blood work that he wanted to double-check. Lily agreed, mostly out of curiosity. She didn't think much of it. After all, she felt fine. A few days later, she received a call from Dr. Alexander's office. "Lily, we need to talk," the voice on the other end of the phone said, urgency creeping into their tone. Lily's heart skipped a beat. She was told to come in for a follow-up appointment. Little did she know, this phone call was the beginning of something that would alter her life completely. When she arrived at the clinic, Dr. Alexander looked even more serious than before. He explained that the tests had revealed something unexpected, something that made Lily's stomach churn. She was pregnant. Pregnant. She sat in silence, trying to process what she had just heard. Pregnant? How? She was certain she hadn't been intimate with anyone recently. But how is this even possible? She asked, her voice trembling. Dr. Alexander cleared his throat. Lily, there's something else you need to know. It seems that there was an error during a procedure we conducted. He paused for a moment, clearly uncomfortable. Lily's mind raced, trying to piece together what he was saying. What kind of error? What was going on? Dr. Alexander continued. I'm afraid that the pregnancy is a result of a mistake that happened during the tests. It's rare, but not impossible. I'm so sorry. Lily sat back in her chair, her mind swirling with confusion. A mistake? How could this happen? But the reality of the situation was sinking in. She was pregnant, and the father, as it turned out, was Dr. Alexander himself, the millionaire doctor she had never imagined she would meet under these circumstances. But this was just the beginning of an unexpected journey that would change everything. What would she do now? The following day, Lily sat in her small apartment, her head spinning. She couldn't stop thinking about the conversation she had with Dr. Alexander just hours earlier. She had never imagined something like this happening to her. Pregnant? And with the father being the millionaire doctor she had met only once for a routine checkup? It felt like a nightmare, yet somehow, it was her new reality. As she stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything, the phone buzzed. It was from Dr. Alexander. Lily, we need to talk, the message read. Please meet me at my office tomorrow at 10. She stared at the screen for a moment, then put the phone down with a heavy sigh. What else could he possibly have to say? What more could possibly happen? The next morning, she dressed in her most neutral attire, trying to hide the anxiety that bubbled in her chest. She didn't know what to expect when she walked into Dr. Alexander's office again, but one thing was clear. Her life was no longer hers to control. She was about to step into a world where everything had changed. When she arrived at the office, Dr. Alexander was already waiting for her, his expression unreadable as usual. He motioned for her to sit, then closed the door behind her with a soft click. Lily felt the tension in the room rise. and she crossed her arms, trying to shield herself from the conversation that was about to unfold. Lily, Dr. Alexander began, his voice low and serious. I know this is a lot to process, and I want to make sure you fully understand what's going on. Lily nodded but didn't speak, feeling the knot in her stomach tighten. The procedure you underwent was a mistake on my part, he continued. There's no easy way to say this, but I have to be honest with you. You're pregnant with my child. His eyes met hers, and Lily could see the sincerity in them, but also something else, a deep guilt. She was speechless for a moment, her mind racing as she tried to digest his words. But how is this even possible? How could you have? She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Dr. Alexander sighed. It was a mix-up in the lab. Something went wrong during the tests, and it's not something that happens often, but it did in this case. He paused, clearly uncomfortable. I take full responsibility for it, and I want to help. Lily's mind was still reeling, but she finally managed to speak. You want to help? She asked, her voice shaking slightly. How can you possibly help? What are you going to do about this? I know it's a lot to take in, Dr. Alexander said, his voice gentle but firm. I have a proposal for you. I want to make sure you're taken care of, and that this situation doesn't cause you any more stress. I think the best course of action is for us to marry, for the sake of the child, and to avoid any complications with my family. Lily stared at him, her heart racing. Marry, she repeated, her mind struggling to wrap around the idea. But we don't even know each other. This was a mistake. I understand, Dr. Alexander said, his expression softening. But the truth is, my family will not allow me to have a child outside of marriage. They are very traditional, and this could cause problems for both of us if we don't handle it properly. Lily felt like the ground was shifting beneath her. A marriage of convenience. She had never imagined herself in such a situation, especially not with a man she hardly knew, and certainly not with a millionaire doctor who could have any woman he wanted. But the idea of facing this alone, of being pregnant and potentially shunned by society, was terrifying. She felt cornered. I don't know, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I need some time to think. Dr. Alexander nodded, his face full of understanding. Take all the time you need, Lily. But just know that I will do whatever it takes to make sure you and the baby are okay. I'll provide everything you need, financially and emotionally. He stood up, walking toward her with a reassuring expression. We can take this at your pace. But I want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. Lily didn't know what to think. Her emotions were a mess. Fear, confusion, even a strange sense of responsibility. She had never thought that her life would take such an unexpected turn. She left his office in a daze, unsure of what her next steps should be. The idea of marrying a stranger, even if it was for the sake of the baby, felt like something out of a dream. But the reality was, she had no choice but to consider it. As she walked back to her apartment, her thoughts were filled with a whirlwind of emotions. Would this arrangement work? Could she really marry a man she barely knew, all for the sake of a child that was the result of a mistake? The answers were unclear, but one thing was certain. Her life would never be the same. The following days were a whirlwind for Lily. She spent most of her time in a haze, trying to process everything Dr. Alexander had told her. The thought of marrying a man she barely knew, let alone a man who was a millionaire, was overwhelming. Yet, the more she thought about it, the more she realized she had few options. She could not imagine raising a child alone, especially with the pressure that would come from society and her own family. Dr. Alexander's proposal, though strange and unorthodox, seemed like the only way forward. On the third day after their meeting, Lily decided to take him up on his offer. She wasn't ready for the life he was offering, but she knew she couldn't do this alone. As she sat in her small apartment, her phone buzzed again. It was a message from Dr. Alexander. Are you ready to talk? With a deep breath, she typed back, yes. They arranged to meet at his office again. When she walked into Dr. Alexander's office this time, the tension was palpable. He stood by the window, looking out at the city skyline, his posture rigid. It was clear that he had been waiting for her decision, and he seemed to be just as uncertain as she was. Lily took a seat across from him, her heart pounding in her chest. I've thought about it, she said, her voice shaky. I'm willing to go through with it. I'll marry you. Dr. Alexander turned to face her, his expression softening. For the first time, Lily saw a glimpse of warmth in his eyes. Thank you, Lily. I know this isn't easy, and I want you to know that I will be there for you every step of the way. This marriage will be real for me too, even if we're not doing it for the reasons we expected." Lily nodded, unsure of what that meant, but at least she knew that he would be there. That was something. They spent the next few hours going over the logistics of their arrangement. The wedding would take place in 2 weeks, a simple affair at the courthouse, with just a few close friends and family members as witnesses. Lily would move into his mansion, a place that seemed as cold and sterile as the doctor himself. But she could not afford to be picky. The thought of raising her child in a small apartment, alone and struggling, was far worse than the idea of living in a lavish home with a man she didn't love. Dr. Alexander, though distant and formal, assured her that he would respect her space and that she would have as much privacy as she needed. The next 2 weeks were a blur. Lily had a mixture of dread and anticipation in her stomach as the wedding day drew nearer. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that there was more to Dr. Alexander than he was letting on. She had never been good at reading people, but she was starting to notice subtle changes in his behavior. He was more attentive than before, asking about her day and trying to make small talk. It was clear that he was trying to make her feel comfortable, but it only made Lily feel more uncomfortable. She had never been good at letting people in, and this was no exception. As the wedding day arrived, Lily found herself standing in front of a full-length mirror in her small apartment, staring at her reflection. She had never imagined her wedding day would look like this. She wasn't even sure she wanted to get married. But there was no turning back now. She had already agreed to this arrangement, and there was no way out. The ceremony was small but elegant. Dr. Alexander stood at the front of the courthouse, his dark suit making him look even more imposing. Lily, in a simple but beautiful white dress, walked down the aisle with a heavy heart. She barely made it through the vows, her voice barely above a whisper as she repeated the words that would bind her to this man. "I do," she said, the words feeling foreign on her lips. When the ceremony was over, they exchanged a brief kiss, the crowd of witnesses applauding politely. It felt surreal, like she was watching someone else's life unfold. Afterward, Dr. Alexander took Lily back to his mansion. She felt like an intruder in a world that wasn't hers, surrounded by wealth and luxury that she had never known. The house was enormous, with high ceilings and marble floors that echoed with every step. It felt cold, empty, as if no one had ever truly lived there. As they walked through the hallways, Dr. Alexander gave her a brief tour of the house. He showed her the massive living room, the gourmet kitchen, and the sprawling garden outside. "This is your home now," he said, his voice soft but firm. Lily nodded, not sure what to say. "You can take your time settling in," he added. "There's no rush." Lily didn't know what to do with herself. She was living in a mansion, married to a man she barely knew, and pregnant with his child. She should have been excited, relieved even, but all she felt was a sense of emptiness. That night, after a quiet dinner, Dr. Alexander excused himself to work in his office. Lily went to bed early, her mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. She stared at the ceiling, wondering how she had ended up here. Was this truly the right decision? Was it too late to turn back? But as the hours passed and the house grew silent, she realized one thing. There was no going back. She had made her choice, and now she had to live with it. It had been a week since the wedding, and Lily's new life was slowly starting to feel less like a dream and more like her reality. The mansion was as beautiful as it was intimidating. Lily had found herself walking the halls, still unsure of where to go or what to do with herself. She had been given free rein of the entire house, but it didn't feel like home. It felt like a display, like a show put on for the world to see. Dr. Alexander had been polite, but distant, allowing her to adjust at her own pace. They had dinner together once, but the silence between them was thick, and the small talk felt forced. He didn't ask about her day, and she didn't know how to ask about his. Every time they were in the same room, it was as though there was an invisible wall between them. He had respected her space, perhaps too much. At night, he would retreat to his office, leaving Lily alone with her thoughts. During the day, she would wander the mansion, exploring the different rooms. There was a grand piano in the living room that she would sit at for hours, her fingers gently caressing the keys, though she had forgotten how to play long ago. It was her way of passing time, her way of finding a sense of normalcy in a world that was anything but normal. One afternoon, Lily found herself walking outside in the garden, her hand resting lightly on her growing belly. The sun was warm, and the flowers were in full bloom, but it all felt so surreal. How had she ended up here? She had gone from a quiet life in a small apartment to living in a mansion with a man she had married out of necessity. As much as she tried to ignore the feelings of loneliness that gnawed at her, they were impossible to escape. Dr. Alexander had made his intentions clear from the beginning. He was doing this for the child, for appearances, and perhaps out of a sense of obligation. But Lily couldn't help but wonder if there was something more to it. Was there something in him that cared, even just a little? Or was she simply a means to an end? It was that question that kept her up at night, wondering if she had made the right choice. She wasn't sure how long she could keep pretending that everything was okay when it was clear that neither of them was truly happy. That night, after another quiet dinner, Lily decided to ask him about it. They were sitting in the living room, the only sound between them the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Lily looked up at Dr. Alexander, his face illuminated by the soft glow of the lamp beside him. "Why are we doing this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Dr. Alexander looked at her, a faint surprise in his eyes. He had been avoiding any deep conversation between them, but he couldn't ignore her question. "What do you mean?" he asked, his tone cautious. "Why did we get married?" Lily pressed. "Why are you so distant?" "I don't understand." Dr. Alexander sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't expect this, either," he admitted. "I didn't expect to get so close to you. But I don't know how to fix it. I've never been good at relationships. I've spent so much of my life focused on work and the pressure of my family that I never learned how to." He trailed off, clearly at a loss for words. Lily felt a strange mix of sympathy and frustration. She could see the pain in his eyes, the weight of responsibility that he carried, but it didn't make the situation any easier. "I don't want to be alone in this," she said softly. "I don't want to feel like I'm just a placeholder. I need something real, something more than this marriage of convenience." Dr. Alexander looked at her for a long moment, as if considering her words. "I never wanted you to feel like that," he said finally. "I've been doing what I thought was best, but I see now that I haven't been present for you. I'm sorry." Lily felt a small sense of relief at his apology, but she knew it wasn't enough. The truth was, she didn't know if they could ever be anything more than what they were now. The foundation of their relationship was built on a mistake, and trust wasn't something that could be easily repaired. But at least now, they had acknowledged the tension between them. Maybe that was a step in the right direction. The next few days passed in a strange quiet. Dr. Alexander made an effort to spend more time with Lily, but it was clear that they were still both adjusting. They talked more, but the conversations were often stilted, as if neither of them knew how to bridge the gap that had been formed. Lily found herself spending more time outside, in the garden, or in the study, where she could get some peace away from the awkwardness of their interactions. One evening, as she was sitting on the balcony, looking out over the city, Dr. Alexander joined her. He didn't say anything at first, just stood beside her, his hands in his pockets. For the first time, the silence between them didn't feel oppressive. It felt comfortable. Finally, Dr. Alexander spoke. "I know I've made mistakes," he said, his voice low. "But I want to try. I want to do better." Lily turned to face him, searching his expression. There was sincerity in his eyes, and for the first time, she saw the possibility of something more. Maybe this wasn't the fairy tale she had imagined, but perhaps it was the beginning of something real. "We'll take it one step at a time," Lily said quietly. And for the first time in a long while, she felt a glimmer of hope. It had been a month since the wedding, and though things had improved slightly, Lily could not shake the feeling that there was still so much left unsaid between her and Dr. Alexander. They had settled into a routine of sorts, but it was clear that neither of them was fully comfortable with the situation. He continued to be distant, polite, but reserved, as if there were still a wall between them that neither of them knew how to break down. Lily, for her part, had tried to make the best of things. She spent most of her time in the house, attending to her pregnancy, which was progressing without issue. She would wander through the mansion, reading, cooking, and doing what she could to stay busy. She knew that Dr. Alexander was working hard, but she couldn't help but feel like they were both drifting further apart. There was a growing distance between them, and it was starting to wear on her. The nights were especially difficult. Dr. Alexander had his own wing of the house, and though he had promised to respect her space, the loneliness that came with it was almost suffocating. She would lie awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what her life would look like once the baby arrived. Would they be able to make this work? Could they build something real out of this arrangement? The uncertainty was maddening, but there was no escaping it. One evening, as she was sitting on the balcony, gazing out over the city, Dr. Alexander came outside, his presence so sudden it startled her. He stood in the doorway for a moment before walking toward her. "Mind if I join you?" he asked softly, a hint of hesitation in his voice. Lily smiled faintly, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Of course," she replied, gesturing to the chair beside her. Dr. Alexander sat down, the silence between them stretching for a moment. "How are you feeling?" he asked, his voice gentler than usual. Lily glanced at him, surprised by the question. It was the first time he had asked her that directly. "I'm fine," she replied, though the words felt empty. "Just adjusting, I guess." He nodded, looking out over the city as well. The sound of crickets in the garden and the soft hum of traffic below were the only things breaking the silence. After a few moments, Dr. Alexander spoke again. "I know I haven't been very present," he admitted, his voice low and steady. "And I'm sorry for that. I've been focused on work, but I understand that I need to do better, especially now, with the baby coming." Lily turned to face him, her heart suddenly racing. This was the conversation she had been waiting for, the one that had been hanging in the air for so long. She wasn't sure what she expected him to say, but the tension in the air made it clear that they were both on the verge of something important. "I appreciate that," Lily said, her voice soft. "But I need more from you than just apologies. I need to know that we can build something real here. I can't keep pretending that this arrangement is enough." Dr. Alexander looked at her, his eyes meeting hers for the first time in days. He seemed to be searching for something in her expression, something that would tell him what to do next. After a long pause, he spoke again, his words deliberate. "What do you want, Lily?" he asked quietly. Lily's heart skipped a beat. It was the question she had been afraid to ask herself. What did she want? She had come into this situation expecting nothing more than a business arrangement. But now it was all so much more complicated. "I want to feel like this isn't just a contract," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I want to feel like we're in this together, not just because of the baby, but because we want to be, because we choose each other." Dr. Alexander was silent for a long time, and Lily felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Had she said too much? Was this too much to ask for? Finally, he spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "I want that too," he said, his words carrying a weight that made Lily's heart flutter. "I don't know how to get there, but I want to try." Lily looked at him, her breath catching in her throat. For the first time since their wedding, she saw something in him, something real. It wasn't just the obligation he had been hiding behind. It was the beginning of something more, something that might take time, but it was there. "We'll take it slow," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "One step at a time." He nodded, a small, genuine smile tugging at the corner of his lips. One step at a time. They sat in silence for a few moments longer, the weight of their conversation lingering in the air between them. It wasn't a perfect solution, and it wasn't the fairy tale she had once imagined. But it was a start, and sometimes that was all you could ask for. As the night stretched on, Lily felt a sense of calm settle over her. For the first time in a long while, she felt like things might actually be okay. The road ahead was uncertain, but at least now, she wasn't walking it alone. The days that followed were quieter, but there was an undeniable shift between Lily and Dr. Alexander. They were both trying to make the most of the situation, though the awkwardness was still palpable. Lily had moved into his wing of the mansion, and although they saw each other every day, their interactions were brief and carefully measured. It wasn't that either of them was unwilling to try. It was simply that the circumstances had left them both guarded. Lily, however, began to sense that things were changing, slowly but surely. Dr. Alexander had started to open up more, allowing small gestures of kindness to slip through his stoic exterior. He would leave her little notes of encouragement, even offering to help her with small things around the house. While it was far from a declaration of love, it was a step forward. One evening, after dinner, he surprised her by suggesting they take a walk in the garden. It was something they had never done before. The air was cool, and the stars were bright against the darkened sky as they walked along the garden path. The silence between them was comfortable, not strained as it had been in the past. Lily felt her nerves begin to relax, her body unwinding as she took in the peace of the night. Dr. Alexander turned to her, his expression thoughtful. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice soft but serious, "about how we're moving forward. And I realize I've been holding back. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be honest with you." Lily looked at him, her heart fluttering slightly. "Honest about what?" she asked, her voice cautious. "About everything," he said, pausing for a moment. "About why I'm doing this. About why I agreed to marry you." Lily's pulse quickened, unsure where this conversation was going, but she was determined to hear him out. "You don't have to explain yourself," she said, trying to keep her tone steady. "I understand why we're doing this. It's for the baby, for appearances." Dr. Alexander shook his head. "It's more than that," he said, his voice low. "When I agreed to this, I thought it was the right thing to do. I thought I was doing what I was supposed to. But now, being here with you, I realize I've been afraid. Afraid of feeling vulnerable. Afraid of letting someone in." Lily stopped walking, turning to face him. "I don't want to force anything," she said quietly. "But I don't want to feel like this is all just for show either. I need to know if there's something real here. Something beyond the obligation, beyond the baby." Dr. Alexander met her gaze, his eyes searching hers for a long moment. "There is," he said finally, his voice filled with conviction. "I may not have known it at first, but I'm starting to care about you. Not just because of the situation we're in, but because of you. Because of who you are." Lily felt her heart skip a beat. She had been waiting for him to say something like this, but hearing it was still surreal. For so long, she had wondered if she was just a convenience for him, a means to an end. But now, for the first time, she saw the possibility of something real between them. "I didn't expect this," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "I didn't expect to feel this way either," he admitted. "But here we are, and I want to see where this can go." They stood there for a long moment, just looking at each other, both unsure of what the future held but knowing that, for the first time, they were both ready to take the next step. The following days brought more changes. Dr. Alexander continued to open up to Lily, sharing more about his past, his fears, and his regrets. He talked about growing up with high expectations and the pressure to always be perfect, to always succeed. He told her how he had built his career, how he had pushed away relationships because he didn't know how to balance his ambition with his personal life. Lily listened, her heart aching for him. She could see now that he wasn't just a distant, cold doctor. He was a man who had been shaped by his experiences, a man who had built walls around himself to protect himself from hurt. As the weeks passed, Lily began to feel more at home in the mansion. She and Dr. Alexander started to spend more time together, and while they didn't rush into anything, their bond deepened. They shared more meals together, took long walks through the garden, and even spent quiet evenings watching movies in the living room. It wasn't the fairy tale she had imagined, but it was becoming something meaningful. The tension between them had eased, replaced by a sense of companionship. There were still moments of doubt, moments when Lily wondered if this was truly the life she wanted, but for the first time, she felt like they were both in this together. They were building something, even if it was small. And that, Lily realized, was enough for now. She was starting to see that there was more to Dr. Alexander than his wealth and his position in life. There was kindness in him, vulnerability, and maybe, just maybe, there was love. And for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe that this could be the start of something real. The days turned into weeks, and Lily found herself becoming more accustomed to her new life. She had settled into a routine with Dr. Alexander. And while they weren't exactly a couple in the traditional sense, something genuine had begun to develop between them. The tension that had once hung thick in the air was gradually replaced by a sense of comfort. They began to spend more time together, talking more freely, sharing moments that felt more personal than they ever had before. Dr. Alexander had opened up more about his childhood, his upbringing, and his fears. It was a side of him that Lily had never seen before, and it made her realize how much he had kept hidden behind his polished exterior. He wasn't just the wealthy, distant man she had first met. He was someone who had been shaped by his past, someone who had struggled with his own sense of worth and belonging. She admired his honesty, and it made her feel more connected to him, more willing to give this strange marriage a chance. But even with the progress they were making, Lily still felt the weight of their circumstances. She had come to care for Dr. Alexander, but there was still a part of her that wasn't sure if she could fully trust him. if she could ever truly be happy in this marriage. After all, their union had been born out of an accident, a mistake that had led them both into a world neither had planned for. One evening, as they were sitting together in the living room, Dr. Alexander put down his glass of wine and turned to Lily. "I've been thinking," he said, his tone serious. "I know this hasn't been easy for you, for either of us, but I want to make it work. I don't want to just go through the motions. I want us to really try. For the baby, yes, but also for us." Lily's heart skipped a beat. She had heard those words before, but something about the way he said them now made her believe he truly meant them. She looked at him, studying his face, trying to gauge if he was sincere or just saying what he thought she needed to hear. "What do you mean by really try?" she asked, her voice soft. "I mean that I want to be more present," he replied. "I want to be a real partner to you, not just a figurehead. I know I've been distant, and I've kept myself locked away, but I don't want that anymore. I want to be here for you. I want to help build a life together, not just for the baby, but for us." Lily felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. It wasn't perfect, and she wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she felt like maybe they could make this work. Maybe, just maybe, this marriage wasn't just a contract, but the beginning of something real. "I want that too," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But it's not going to be easy. We can't just pretend like everything's fine. We need to be honest with each other, even when it's hard." He nodded, his expression serious. "I agree. I don't want to hide anymore. I'm ready to face whatever comes, together." Lily felt a surge of hope, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself to experience in weeks. She had been so focused on the uncertainty, the fear of the unknown, but in this moment, she saw a glimmer of possibility. Maybe they could make this work. Maybe they could build a life together, one step at a time. The next few days were a turning point. Dr. Alexander made a concerted effort to be more present. He started spending more time with Lily, taking her out for walks around the mansion, talking to her more openly about his past, his plans, and his thoughts for the future. They began to make decisions together, small ones at first, but it felt like progress. They talked about the baby, about the kind of life they wanted to provide for their child, and about what their future might look like. There were still moments of awkwardness, moments when Lily caught herself questioning everything, but they were fewer and farther between. She was starting to feel like they were on the same page, even if the road ahead was still uncertain. One afternoon, Dr. Alexander came home early from work. Lily was in the kitchen, preparing dinner, when he walked in, a smile on his face. "I have a surprise for you," he said, his eyes twinkling. Lily raised an eyebrow. "A surprise? What is it?" "Close your eyes," he said. Lily laughed softly, but did as he asked. She felt him take her hand, guiding her through the house. After a few moments, he stopped, and she could hear the sound of a door opening. "Okay, open them," he said. When Lily opened her eyes, she gasped in surprise. They were standing in front of a nursery, a room that had clearly been prepared for the baby. The walls were painted a soft, calming shade of blue, and there was a crib in the center of the room, surrounded by stuffed animals, books, and soft blankets. It was a space that was warm and inviting, a stark contrast to the coldness of the rest of the house. "I thought you might like to see this," Dr. Alexander said quietly. "I wanted to do something for the baby, something real." Lily felt a lump form in her throat. She had never expected this. She had never expected him to care so much, to take such an active role in preparing for their child. For the first time since their wedding, she felt like they were truly in this together. "It's beautiful," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Dr. Alexander smiled, his eyes softening as he looked at her. "It's just the beginning," he said. "There's so much more to come, and I want to be here for all of it, with you." Lily felt her heart swell with gratitude. Maybe this wasn't the life she had planned for, but in this moment, she realized that she was no longer walking it alone. They were building something together, one step at a time. The weeks that followed were filled with small moments of progress, and yet Lily couldn't shake the feeling that things were still too fragile. Dr. Alexander continued to surprise her in ways she hadn't expected, showing care and attention that made her question her initial assumptions about him. Their growing connection, though still cautious, was slowly becoming the foundation for something more than just a marriage of convenience. They had started to share more about their pasts, their fears, and their hopes for the future, and with each conversation, Lily felt herself growing more comfortable in this new life. But there was still the undeniable tension that came from the weight of their circumstances. Their marriage had been born out of a mistake, and it still didn't feel like it belonged to them. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and for now, that had to be enough. One evening, as the sun began to set and the warm golden light poured through the windows, Dr. Alexander walked into the living room with a smile on his face. "I have something I need to tell you," he said, his tone light, but with a hint of excitement. Lily looked up from the book she was reading, curious. "What is it?" she asked, setting the book aside. He leaned against the doorframe, his arms crossed. "I've been thinking a lot about the future, about the baby, and about us. And I think it's time we start planning a little more seriously." Lily raised an eyebrow. "Planning?" she asked. "What do you mean?" Dr. Alexander pushed off from the doorframe and walked over to her. "I mean that I want to make sure we're prepared for everything," he said, his eyes softening. "I want to make sure you're comfortable, that you feel at home here. I know it's been a big adjustment for you, and I don't want you to feel like you're just living in a house, but not truly a part of it." Lily's heart swelled at his words. She hadn't expected this level of thoughtfulness, and it made her realize how far they had come. "I think I'm starting to feel at home," she said softly. "But there's still so much uncertainty. I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate all of this." Dr. Alexander nodded, sitting down beside her on the couch. "I get that, and I want you to know that I'm here, that we're in this together. I'm not asking for perfection, but I do want us to be honest with each other. I want to be a partner to you, not just a husband in name." His words made something inside Lily shift. She had been so focused on the uncertainty of their situation, the fear of it all falling apart. But now she saw that perhaps they were both on the same path, even if they hadn't known how to walk it together. "I don't know what the future holds," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "But I think we can make it work. I just need to know that you're here, that this isn't just about obligation." Dr. Alexander reached for her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "I'm here, Lily. This isn't about obligation. I've never been good at this kind of thing, but I want to try. I want to make sure you and the baby are happy, that we're happy." Lily smiled softly, feeling a warmth in her chest. She had been so unsure for so long, but now, for the first time, she felt like there was hope for them. Maybe they could build something real, after all. "We'll take it one step at a time," she said, her voice steady. "That's all I can ask for." Dr. Alexander smiled back, his eyes filled with a mixture of relief and affection. "One step at a time," he agreed. Over the next few days, Lily and Dr. Alexander continued to grow closer. They talked more openly, shared more of their thoughts, and spent more time together. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like progress. Lily had always been independent, and the idea of relying on someone else, even a husband, had been difficult for her. But with Dr. Alexander, she was starting to see that it didn't have to be a weakness to lean on someone. He was offering her the partnership she had been looking for, and slowly, she was beginning to trust him. As they continued to adjust to their new life together, Dr. Alexander began to take on more of the responsibilities that came with their growing family. He attended doctor's appointments with Lily, something he hadn't done at first, and asked about the baby's progress regularly. Lily couldn't help but notice how invested he was becoming. It was as if the man who had once seemed so distant and focused solely on his work was now fully engaged in their future, in their family. It made her feel more secure, more hopeful about what was to come. But even with all the progress they had made, there were still moments of doubt. Lily couldn't shake the feeling that there was something she didn't know, something Dr. Alexander was still holding back. It wasn't that he was being secretive, but there were times when he would withdraw, retreating into himself, as though the weight of their situation was too much for him. Lily didn't push him on it, but she couldn't ignore it. She had come to care for him deeply, and it hurt her to see him struggle in silence. One afternoon, as they were sitting together in the garden, Lily decided to bring it up. "Is there something you're not telling me?" she asked, her voice gentle but insistent. Dr. Alexander looked at her, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," she said, her fingers absently tracing the edge of her cup. "It's just, sometimes I feel like you're holding something back. Like there's something you're not saying, even when we're being honest with each other." Dr. Alexander sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "You're right," he said after a long pause. "There's something I've been struggling with, something I haven't been able to talk about. But I'm not ready to share it yet." Lily looked at him, her heart aching for him. "Whenever you're ready, I'll be here," she said quietly. Dr. Alexander smiled faintly, the tension in his shoulders easing just a little. "Thank you," he said, his voice low. "I appreciate that more than you know." They sat there in the quiet of the garden, the weight of their unspoken words hanging between them. But for the first time in a long while, Lily felt like maybe they were finally on the same page. Maybe, just maybe, they could make it through this together. The weeks passed by, and as Lily's pregnancy progressed, the atmosphere in the house began to shift in unexpected ways. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and for the first time since their marriage, Lily felt a sense of peace settling in. She and Dr. Alexander continued to grow closer, their conversations no longer just about logistics and responsibilities. They started to share more of their lives, little details that felt significant, his favorite childhood memories, the way he liked his coffee, and the stories behind the names of the books that lined the shelves in his study. He had become more open, more present, and though the road ahead was still uncertain, Lily began to see a future she hadn't expected. One evening, as they sat in the living room after dinner, Dr. Alexander broke the silence, his voice more serious than usual. "Lily, there's something we need to talk about," he said. Lily looked up from her knitting, her heart quickening at the sudden shift in his tone. "What is it?" she asked, setting the knitting aside. Dr. Alexander ran a hand through his hair, a look of concern on his face. "I've been thinking a lot about our situation. About everything, really. And there's something I've been avoiding." Lily raised an eyebrow, her curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" He took a deep breath, as though gathering the strength to say the words. "I've been holding back for a long time. I think part of it is because I'm afraid. Afraid of what this could mean, afraid of what you might think. But I realize now that I can't keep avoiding it. I need to be honest with you." Lily's heart pounded in her chest, a mix of anticipation and apprehension flooding her. "What are you afraid of?" she asked gently. Dr. Alexander looked at her, his eyes searching her face for some kind of sign, as if trying to find the right words. "I'm afraid of failing you," he said quietly. "I'm afraid of not being enough. For you, for the baby, for this family. I've spent so many years building my career, focusing on everything except the people who matter. And now, with you and the baby, I feel like I'm in over my head." Lily felt a rush of empathy for him. She had always known that he was a man driven by his work, but hearing him speak so vulnerably made her realize how much pressure he had been under all this time. "You're not alone in this," she said softly. "We're in this together. I'm not expecting perfection, but I need you to be here. I need you to be present." Dr. Alexander let out a breath, as though a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. "I'm here, Lily. I know I haven't always shown it, but I want to be. I want to be the kind of husband and father you deserve." Her heart swelled with emotion. She had always known that Dr. Alexander was capable of great things, but she had never expected him to be this open, this willing to confront his own fears. It was a side of him she hadn't seen before, and it made her feel more connected to him than ever. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with gratitude. "That means everything to me." He smiled softly, his eyes filled with a quiet sincerity. "I want to make this work, Lily. For you, for the baby, for us. I'm not perfect, but I'll do my best." Lily nodded, her heart full. "I know you will." They sat in silence for a while, the weight of their conversation hanging in the air. For the first time in a long while, Lily felt like they were on the same page, like they were truly a team. The doubts and fears that had once consumed her were slowly starting to fade, replaced by a newfound sense of hope. As the weeks continued to pass, they took more steps toward building their future together. Dr. Alexander became more involved in preparing for the baby. He attended every doctor's appointment with her, asking questions, expressing excitement, and even making jokes to lighten the mood. It wasn't the perfect fairy tale romance, but it was real, and it was theirs. One afternoon, as Lily was sitting in the nursery, organizing the baby's clothes, she heard the sound of Dr. Alexander's voice calling her from the hallway. "Lily, come here. I've got something for you." She stood up, curious, and walked into the hallway, where Dr. Alexander was holding a small box wrapped in a simple ribbon. "What's this?" she asked, her eyebrows raising in surprise. "Open it and see," he said with a smile. Lily untied the ribbon and carefully opened the box. Inside, she found a delicate silver bracelet with a small charm shaped like a heart. "It's for the baby," he said softly. I thought it would be nice to have something to remember this moment by. We're starting a new chapter, and I wanted to give you something to remind you that we're doing this together." Lily's eyes filled with tears as she looked at the bracelet. It was a small gesture, but it meant more to her than words could express. She had never expected to find such kindness, such thoughtfulness, in a man who had once seemed so distant. "It's beautiful," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Alexander reached out and gently took her hand, placing the bracelet on her wrist. "I'll always be here, Lily," he said softly. "For you and for our family." In that moment, everything felt right. Despite the challenges, despite the uncertainty, they were building something together, and for the first time, Lily felt a deep sense of peace. She knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but as long as they were walking it side by side, she felt like they could face anything. She smiled at Dr. Alexander, her heart full. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything." He smiled back, his eyes warm with affection. "You don't have to thank me," he replied. "We're in this together." And for the first time in a long while, Lily truly believed it. As the months passed, Lily and Dr. Alexander continued to find a rhythm in their lives together. The tension that had once defined their relationship was now a distant memory, replaced by a newfound sense of unity. Their days were filled with small moments of happiness, simple gestures that spoke volumes about their growing bond. Dr. Alexander continued to show Lily that he was committed to their partnership, to their family, and to her. He had become more than just a husband in name. He was becoming a true partner, someone she could rely on. Still, there were moments when Lily felt the weight of their past decisions pressing down on her. She couldn't shake the feeling that their marriage had been built on a foundation of mistakes, and no matter how much they had grown, there was always that lingering doubt. Could they truly make it work? Could they truly be happy together? As her due date approached, the uncertainty in her heart only deepened. Lily had spent the last few months preparing for the baby, getting the nursery ready, and attending appointments with Dr. Alexander by her side. Yet, even with all the planning and excitement, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something missing. One evening, as they sat in the living room together, Lily finally voiced her concerns. "Do you ever wonder if we're doing the right thing?" she asked, her voice quiet but full of emotion. Dr. Alexander turned to her, his brow furrowing slightly. "What do you mean?" he asked, his tone soft, as though sensing the seriousness of her question. "I mean," Lily began, her hands resting on her growing belly. "Do you think we're really building something here, or are we just going through the motions? I know we've come a long way, but sometimes it feels like we're still just pretending." Dr. Alexander was silent for a long moment, his eyes searching her face as if trying to understand the depth of her words. Finally, he spoke, his voice steady and thoughtful. "I think we're both scared, Lily," he said quietly. "Scared of what this means, scared of what we've been through, scared of whether or not we'll be able to make this work. But I don't think we're pretending. We're doing this, together. We're making it work, step by step." Lily looked at him, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. "But is that enough?" she asked softly. "Is just making it work enough for us to be happy?" Dr. Alexander took a deep breath, his expression softening. "I can't promise that everything will be perfect," he said, his voice low and sincere. "I can't promise that there won't be hard days ahead, but I can promise that I'm here, that I'm committed to you, to this family, to making it work. I want to build a life with you, Lily. I want to be a father to this child, and I want to be the husband you deserve. I want to give you the kind of love you've been waiting for, even if it takes time to get there." Lily felt her eyes fill with tears at his words. She had spent so long doubting, so long wondering if this was the right path, but in this moment, she saw the truth in his eyes. He wasn't perfect, and neither was she, but they had come so far together, and there was still so much more to look forward to. Maybe, just maybe, they could make it work. "I want that too," Lily said softly, her voice trembling. "I want to believe that we can build something real, something that's just ours." Dr. Alexander reached out, taking her hand in his. "We will," he said, squeezing her hand gently. "One day at a time. We'll build it together." The next few days passed in a quiet haze as Lily prepared for the arrival of their baby. The nerves were settling in, but they were no longer accompanied by the fear and doubt that had once consumed her. Now, there was hope, there was love, and there was the promise of a future they would build together. As the day of her delivery approached, Lily felt both excitement and apprehension. She had never been more ready, and yet she knew there was so much that was still unknown. But this time, she didn't feel alone. Dr. Alexander had been by her side through every step of this journey, and now, as they stood on the threshold of becoming parents, she knew they were ready. The night before the baby was due to arrive, they sat together in the nursery, the soft glow of the night light casting a warm light across the room. The crib was ready, the baby's clothes neatly folded in drawers, and the stuffed animals that filled the shelves seemed to watch over them, as though ready to welcome the newest member of their family. "We've come a long way," Lily said softly, her hand resting on her belly. Dr. Alexander nodded, his hand gently resting on hers. "We have," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "And I'm proud of us. We've built something real, something that's ours. And tomorrow, we'll welcome our child into this world, together." Lily smiled, her heart full. "Together," she repeated. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel the weight of uncertainty. She didn't feel like they were just going through the motions. They were building something real, something lasting. And as she looked at Dr. Alexander, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. She wasn't alone anymore. Neither of them was. And for the first time in a long while, she felt truly at home. The night passed in a blur of nervous anticipation and excitement. Lily had never imagined that her life would take such an unexpected turn, but as she lay in the hospital bed, she realized how far she had come. The contractions had started in the early morning, and now, as the day wore on, the pain had grown more intense. Dr. Alexander had been by her side the entire time, offering words of comfort and encouragement, but Lily could see the anxiety in his eyes. He was nervous, too, but he did his best to hide it. Despite the overwhelming sense of uncertainty that lingered in the back of her mind, Lily couldn't help but feel a strange sense of peace. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment that would forever change their lives. The baby would be here soon, and everything would be different. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of the machines and the occasional shuffle of the nurses. Dr. Alexander sat next to her, holding her hand, his grip strong and reassuring. "You're doing great," he said softly, his voice soothing despite the tension that hung in the air. "Just a little longer, and we'll meet our baby." Lily nodded, trying to focus on his words, but the pain was overwhelming. She had read about childbirth, heard stories from friends, but nothing could have prepared her for this. The contractions were sharp and relentless, and she found herself gripping Dr. Alexander's hand tighter with each wave. "I don't know if I can do this," she said, her voice shaky. Dr. Alexander's eyes softened with empathy. "You're doing it, Lily. You're stronger than you think. We're in this together." His words were a lifeline, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Lily let herself lean into him. The pain was still there, but somehow it didn't feel as overwhelming with him by her side. Time seemed to stretch on endlessly, the minutes feeling like hours, but finally, the moment arrived. The doctors and nurses rushed into the room, and Lily could feel the overwhelming urge to push. Dr. Alexander's eyes were locked on hers, his face a mask of concentration. "I'm right here," he said softly, squeezing her hand. "Just focus on me. You can do this." With his support, Lily found the strength to push through the pain, to bring their baby into the world. The world around her seemed to disappear as she focused entirely on the moment. And then, with one final push, there was a cry. The sound filled the room, and for the first time since they had met, Lily felt a sense of awe and wonder fill her chest. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, holding up their newborn daughter. Dr. Alexander's face lit up with pride and joy. "A girl," he repeated softly, his voice thick with emotion. Lily couldn't take her eyes off the tiny, perfect little girl in the doctor's arms. She was theirs, this tiny being, a symbol of everything they had built together. The doctors placed the baby on Lily's chest, and she gasped, overwhelmed with love and emotion. She was so small, so fragile, but in that moment, Lily knew that she would do anything to protect her. She felt Dr. Alexander's hand on her shoulder, and when she looked up at him, she saw a tear in his eye. "She's perfect," he whispered. Lily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "She is." The next few hours passed in a haze of happiness, exhaustion, and disbelief. Lily could hardly believe that she was holding her daughter in her arms, that this little girl was now a part of their world. Dr. Alexander stayed close by, offering support as Lily adjusted to motherhood. He was gentle, attentive, and more present than she had ever seen him. For the first time, Lily could see the depth of his love, not just for her, but for their daughter, for the family they were building. As they sat together, their newborn daughter nestled between them, Lily felt a profound sense of peace. This was the moment they had been working toward, the moment when all of the struggles, the uncertainties, and the doubts had led to something beautiful. She had never imagined that her life would turn out this way. She had never imagined that she would fall in love with a man she had once considered a stranger, or that they would become parents together. But now, looking at their daughter, Lily realized that this was exactly where she was meant to be. "I think we're ready for this," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder. Dr. Alexander smiled softly, his eyes filled with warmth. "We've always been ready. We just didn't know it yet." Lily leaned back against the pillows, her daughter asleep in her arms, and for the first time in a long time, she felt truly at peace. The journey had been long and difficult, but they had made it. They were a family now, and nothing could change that. As the evening drew on and the room became quiet, Lily and Dr. Alexander sat in the stillness of their new life, their hearts full of love and hope. They had faced their fears, taken each step together, and now they were ready for whatever the future would bring. Together, the weeks following the birth of their daughter were filled with both joy and exhaustion. Lily and Dr. Alexander had settled into their new life as parents, and though the challenges of parenthood were undeniable, they found themselves growing even closer. Their daughter, whom they had named Amelia, became the center of their world. She was a constant reminder of the love and commitment they had built together. Dr. Alexander was more present than ever, taking on the role of a loving father with a sincerity that made Lily's heart swell. It wasn't just about being there for the baby. It was about being there for her, for their family. They had come so far since their marriage, and for the first time, Lily truly felt like they were a team, not just two people trying to make it work. But as the days passed, the reality of their new life began to set in. The quiet moments, when Amelia was asleep or content, were often filled with reflection. Lily couldn't help but wonder if their journey would ever be fully free of uncertainty. She had learned to trust Dr. Alexander in ways she never expected, but there was always that underlying question. Was this all going to last? Could they really make a life together, not just for the baby, but for themselves as a couple? These thoughts weighed heavily on her mind, especially in the stillness of the early mornings when she would wake up before the rest of the house, her thoughts racing. One afternoon, as they sat together in the living room, Dr. Alexander turned to her, his face serious but kind. "Lily, I know things haven't been perfect, and I know there's a lot we still need to figure out, but I want you to know how much I appreciate you," he said. Lily looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. "What do you mean?" she asked, setting her coffee cup down. "I mean that I see everything you do, everything you've sacrificed for us. You've given so much to this family, to me, and I want to make sure you know that it doesn't go unnoticed. I've never been the best at showing my emotions, but I want you to know how deeply I care about you and how grateful I am for everything you've done." Lily felt a lump form in her throat at his words. It wasn't the first time he had expressed his gratitude, but this felt different, deeper, more genuine. She reached out and took his hand, her fingers gently tracing the lines of his palm. "I don't need anything in return, Alex," she said softly, using the nickname she had come to call him. "I just want us to keep moving forward. I want us to keep growing together as a family." He smiled, a small but meaningful smile that spoke volumes. "We will," he said, squeezing her hand. "I know we're not perfect, but we're doing this, and we're doing it together. And that's all that matters." The conversation lingered in her mind for days afterward. She had always feared that they were living in a fragile balance, that their relationship was built on the edge of uncertainty, but his words gave her hope. Maybe they weren't perfect, but they were trying, and that effort meant everything. As Amelia continued to grow, so did their bond. They began to take family outings, exploring parks, going to the zoo, and even taking small trips to the beach. Lily had never imagined she would find herself so deeply connected to a man she once barely knew. But here they were, learning to navigate this new life together, one step at a time. Their outings weren't without challenges. There were moments when Dr. Alexander's work demands clashed with family time, and Lily found herself in the familiar role of balancing the needs of their child with the needs of their marriage. But every challenge was met with a sense of teamwork, with both of them working toward the same goal, creating a life filled with love and security for Amelia. It wasn't always easy, but it was theirs. One evening, as they sat in the backyard watching Amelia play with her toys in the grass, Dr. Alexander turned to Lily, his expression serious. "I've been thinking about the future," he said quietly, "about everything we've built so far. And I want to ask you something." Lily looked at him, her heart beating a little faster. "What is it?" she asked. He hesitated for a moment, as though choosing his words carefully. "I know we've had our share of struggles, and I know we're still figuring things out, but I want to make a promise to you. A real promise. I want to be the kind of husband and father that you and Amelia deserve. I want to make sure we never lose sight of what's important, our family." Lily felt a warmth spread through her chest as she listened to him. She could see how deeply he meant it, how committed he was to making this work. "I don't need grand gestures," she said softly. "I just need you to keep showing up. Every day, for me and for her." Dr. Alexander smiled, his eyes full of love and determination. "I will," he said. "I promise." The conversation settled in her heart as the days passed, and for the first time, Lily felt like she had everything she needed. They were no longer just two people bound by circumstance. They were a family, committed to each other, working through the challenges life threw their way. As Amelia's first birthday approached, Lily couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. From the uncertainty of their marriage to the overwhelming joy of parenthood, they had built something real. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and it was enough. On the day of Amelia's birthday, they celebrated quietly at home, surrounded by a few close friends and family. The house was filled with laughter and love, and as Lily watched Dr. Alexander hold their daughter, her heart swelled with pride. They had built a life together, one that was full of hope, love, and a promise to always keep moving forward, together. As the months went by, life in the house felt more settled than it had ever been before. Amelia was growing quickly, reaching new milestones every day, and with each new step, both Lily and Dr. Alexander felt their bond grow stronger. What once felt like an obligation, a marriage built out of circumstance, had now transformed into something that resembled real love. They were no longer just co-parents navigating through an unexpected situation. They were a family. And with that, Lily began to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time: security. Dr. Alexander had been everything she needed him to be: supportive, caring, and present. He was no longer just the distant figure he had been when they first met. He had become her partner in every sense of the word. But despite the happiness they had found together, there were still moments when the shadows of their past decisions lingered in her mind. Could they really make this last? Was their happiness built on a strong enough foundation, or was it a fleeting feeling, destined to fade as quickly as it had appeared? She couldn't help but ask herself those questions, especially when she saw how much he worked, his career still demanding a great deal of his time. He had cut back on hours to spend more time with her and Amelia, but she knew that the pressures of his life would always be there, lurking just beneath the surface. One evening, after dinner, Lily found herself alone in the living room, her thoughts swirling. Amelia had just gone to bed, and Dr. Alexander had retreated to his office to catch up on some work. She tried to focus on the book in her lap, but her mind wouldn't quiet. She had everything she could ever want: her family, her husband, her daughter, but there was always this nagging feeling that something was missing. She needed more from Dr. Alexander. She needed reassurance. She had been patient with the way things were evolving between them, understanding that love and trust were things that didn't always happen overnight. But now, with their first anniversary approaching, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the edge of something. Either they would find deeper connection, or they would drift apart once again, like two ships passing in the night. It wasn't just the uncertainty of their relationship that lingered in her mind. It was the fear of losing the family they had worked so hard to create. She wasn't sure if she was ready for that kind of loss. The thought of going back to a life of loneliness was unbearable. So, she made up her mind. She needed to have a conversation with Dr. Alexander. They had always been open with each other, but this felt different. It wasn't just about the baby or the logistics of their life. It was about them, as a couple. About their future together. As the night wore on, Lily found Dr. Alexander sitting at his desk, papers spread out in front of him, the dim light from his desk lamp casting shadows over his face. He looked up when she entered, his expression softening when he saw her. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice gentle. She hesitated for a moment, trying to gather her thoughts. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. He nodded, setting aside the papers. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Lily sat down across from him, her hands in her lap. "I've been thinking a lot about us lately," she began, her heart pounding in her chest. "About how far we've come, and about where we're headed." Dr. Alexander's expression grew serious, and he leaned forward slightly. "I'm listening." Lily took a deep breath. "I know things haven't always been easy, and I know we've had our share of challenges. But I feel like we're in a good place now. Amelia's growing. We're building a life together. But I need to know that this isn't just temporary. I need to know that we're really in this for the long haul." She paused, looking into his eyes. "I don't want to just be going through the motions. I want to know that we're working towards something real, something lasting." Dr. Alexander was quiet for a moment, and Lily could feel the weight of her words hanging in the air. She had never asked for much, just his presence, his commitment. But now, as she sat before him, it felt like she was asking for everything. Finally, he spoke, his voice steady. "I understand, Lily, and I want to be honest with you. I'm not perfect, and I know I've made mistakes. But I've never taken this lightly. I've never taken you or Amelia for granted." He reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "I want us to have a future. I want to be the husband and father you deserve. I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. This is real. You're real." His words hit her with a wave of emotion. She felt tears welling in her eyes. Not from sadness, but from relief. The weight she had been carrying for so long, the uncertainty, the fear, began to lift. For the first time in a long time, Lily felt truly seen. "I needed to hear that," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I needed to know that we're not just going through the motions, that we're really building something together." Dr. Alexander smiled softly, his eyes filled with sincerity. "We are, and I will continue to show you that every day." In that moment, Lily knew that they had reached a turning point. The uncertainty that had once clouded her heart began to fade. She no longer feared the future. She no longer wondered if they would make it. They had built something strong, something real, and together, they would continue to grow and navigate whatever came their way. For the first time in a long time, Lily felt truly at peace. She wasn't alone anymore, and she never would be again. The months following their heart-to-heart conversation marked a new chapter in Lily and Dr. Alexander's lives. There was a sense of calm that had settled over the house, a quiet assurance that they were not just living together, but truly building a life. Amelia's growth was a constant source of joy, and as she approached her second birthday, Lily couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed in such a short period. There were still challenges to face, of course. Parenthood wasn't without its obstacles. But Lily had learned to take each day as it came, cherishing the small moments of happiness that life had to offer. Dr. Alexander, too, seemed to have found a new sense of balance. His career was still demanding, but he had made a conscious effort to be present for his family. He took on more responsibilities at home, helping with Amelia's care and taking time to nurture their relationship. It was the kind of partnership Lily had always hoped for, though she had never truly expected to find it. Yet, despite the growth they had made as a family, there were times when doubts still crept into Lily's mind. The memories of how they had started, the accidental marriage that had brought them together, often resurfaced in moments of quiet reflection. Could this truly be a lasting love? Could it stand the test of time? One afternoon, as the sun streamed through the large windows in the living room, Lily found herself sitting with Dr. Alexander on the couch, their daughter playing nearby with her toys. The air was calm, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. But that nagging sense of uncertainty was still there, buried just beneath the surface. She had grown to love him, deeply and truly, but she wondered if they had fully dealt with the complexities of their past. "Alex," Lily said, her voice soft but steady. He looked at her, his expression open and patient. "I've been thinking a lot lately," she continued, "about how far we've come, and about where we're going." He nodded, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. I know. We've been through a lot, and we've come a long way. But we're in this together. Whatever happens, we face it as a team. Lily smiled at his reassurance, but a small part of her still felt unsure. But do you ever think about how we started? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Alexander was quiet for a moment, and Lily could see the wheels turning in his mind as he processed her question. Of course I do, he said, his tone thoughtful. How could I not? We've come so far from where we started, and we've built something real together. But that doesn't mean I regret how we got here. I don't think the past should define us. What matters is what we do moving forward, what we continue to build. Lily nodded slowly, his words sinking in. She had always feared that their history would somehow overshadow their future, but hearing him speak with such conviction made her realize that the past was simply the foundation they had built from. It didn't have to be a burden. It could be the starting point for something greater. I want to keep moving forward with you, Alex, she said, her voice firm with newfound resolve. I want to keep building this life with you, with Amelia, and with the love we've found. Dr. Alexander smiled, his eyes softening with affection. I want that too, Lily. More than anything. The weight that had been on Lily's heart seemed to lift in that moment. They weren't perfect, and they never would be, but they had something real. Their love wasn't based on some idealized notion of fate. It was built on the messy, beautiful reality of their lives. And in that reality, they had found something worth fighting for. Over the next few months, their lives settled into a comfortable rhythm. Dr. Alexander's work schedule was still demanding, but they made a point to spend quality time together as a family. They went on weekend trips, took long walks in the park, and spent quiet evenings at home. Amelia was growing into a curious, lively little girl, and every day brought new surprises. Dr. Alexander and Lily had learned to balance their individual needs with the needs of their family. It wasn't always easy, and there were still moments of tension, times when they disagreed or faced setbacks. But they had learned to communicate more openly, to be honest with each other about their fears and their desires. Their relationship had deepened, not because they were perfect, but because they were willing to work through the difficult times together. As Amelia's second birthday approached, Lily couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. They had made it this far, together, and she knew that the journey wasn't over. There were still many more years ahead, and though the future was uncertain, she no longer feared it. They were a family, and they would face whatever came their way with love, commitment, and an unwavering bond. On the day of Amelia's birthday, their house was filled with laughter and joy. Friends and family came to celebrate, and for the first time, Lily allowed herself to fully embrace the happiness that had blossomed in her life. As she watched Dr. Alexander lift Amelia into his arms, his eyes filled with love and pride, she knew that this was the life she had always wanted. Not the life she had imagined, but the life she had built with him. And it was perfect in its own way. As the day came to a close and Amelia drifted off to sleep, Lily and Dr. Alexander stood in the nursery, looking at their daughter. We've come so far, Lily said quietly, her voice filled with emotion. Dr. Alexander nodded, his hand resting on her shoulder. We have, he said softly, and I'm proud of us. Proud of the family we've built. They stood there for a moment, their hearts full. The road ahead would still have its challenges, but as long as they were together, Lily knew they could face anything. Together, they had already overcome so much, and together, they would continue to build a future filled with love and hope. As the months passed, Lily and Dr. Alexander settled into their new life, a life that was both fulfilling and challenging. Their relationship, once built on unexpected circumstances, had now transformed into something deeply rooted in love, understanding, and mutual respect. They had come a long way, and though the road ahead was still uncertain, they had learned to navigate it together. Their daughter, Amelia, was thriving, and she brought a sense of joy and purpose to their home that neither of them had anticipated. Watching her grow, seeing her take her first steps, and hearing her laughter filled their hearts with pride and wonder. Yet, despite the happiness they found in their little family, there were still moments of tension. The pressures of Dr. Alexander's work, the demands of parenthood, and the ever-present doubts that lingered from the past sometimes created a distance between them. It wasn't that they didn't love each other. It was just that the weight of their responsibilities sometimes made it hard to feel fully connected. But Lily had learned something over the past couple of years. She had learned to speak up when something was bothering her, to ask for what she needed, and to express her feelings without fear of rejection. So, when she noticed the subtle distance between them, she didn't keep it to herself. One evening, as they sat together after dinner, Lily turned to Dr. Alexander, who was leaning back in his chair, eyes focused on his phone. "Alex," she began, her voice soft but steady. He looked up at her, sensing the seriousness in her tone. "What's on your mind?" "I've been thinking a lot lately," she said, carefully choosing her words. "About us. About our family." He set his phone down, his full attention on her now. "What about us?" "I know things have been busy, and I know we've both been stressed," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I miss you. I miss the connection we had when we first got together. The closeness, the intimacy. It feels like we've been drifting apart, and I don't want that to happen." Dr. Alexander's face softened as he listened to her words. He reached out and took her hand, his touch gentle and reassuring. "I've noticed it too," he admitted. "Things have been hectic with work and everything, and I know I've been distant. But that doesn't mean I don't care. I don't know how to balance it all." Lily squeezed his hand, her heart aching with the honesty in his words. "I get it. I do," she said softly. "But we have to find a way to make it work, to prioritize each other. We've come so far, Alex. I don't want to lose what we've built." Dr. Alexander nodded slowly, his expression filled with determination. "You're right. We've built something real, and I'm not willing to let it fall apart. I'll do whatever it takes." "We both will," Lily said, her voice filled with conviction. Over the next few weeks, they both made an effort to reconnect. They started spending more quality time together, making the most of the quiet moments when Amelia was asleep. They went on dates, rediscovered old hobbies, and made space for conversations that weren't about their daughter or their responsibilities. They also took the time to talk openly about their fears, their dreams, and the future they wanted to build. Slowly but surely, the distance between them began to close. There were still challenges, of course. Parenthood was never easy, and Dr. Alexander's work was still demanding, but they had found a balance. They learned to communicate better, to share their needs without guilt or shame, and to support each other in ways that strengthened their bond. One evening, as they sat on the couch, cuddled up under a blanket with Amelia asleep in her crib, Dr. Alexander turned to Lily, a soft smile on his lips. "I've been thinking about what you said," he said, "about us, and I realized something important. I've been so focused on providing for our family, on building a future, that I forgot to take care of the most important part, our relationship. You're the foundation of everything I do, and I don't want to take that for granted anymore." Lily's heart swelled with emotion as she listened to him. "I feel the same way," she said quietly. "I've been so focused on being a mom, on making sure everything is perfect, that I forgot to nurture the connection we have. But I don't want that anymore. I want us to grow together, not just as parents, but as partners." He reached out, cupping her face gently in his hands. "We'll make it work," he promised. "We'll always make it work." And for the first time in a long time, Lily truly believed it. As the weeks went by, they found new ways to reconnect and deepen their relationship. They weren't perfect, and they never would be, but they were learning to grow together, to face life's challenges as a team. They both understood now that their love wasn't just about passion or romance. It was about commitment, about showing up for each other every day, no matter what. With each passing day, Lily felt more secure in their relationship, more confident in their future. They had been through so much together already, and as they continued to build their lives, they knew they could face anything that came their way. One afternoon, as they sat in the backyard, watching Amelia play in the grass, Lily turned to Dr. Alexander, a smile on her face. "We're doing it, aren't we?" she asked. He smiled back, his eyes full of love. "Yes, we are." And for the first time in a long while, Lily felt like everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. They had built a life, together, and it was theirs to continue building, one day at a time. As the years passed, Lily and Dr. Alexander continued to build the life they had always dreamed of. Their family had grown, and so had their love for each other. The challenges of raising Amelia, balancing careers, and managing the ebb and flow of daily life had, at times, tested their patience and strength. But with each challenge, they had only grown closer, learning more about themselves and each other as they faced the inevitable ups and downs that came with parenthood and partnership. One evening, after putting Amelia to bed, Lily and Dr. Alexander sat down on the couch, a rare moment of calm in the house. The glow of the fireplace cast a soft light on the room, and the air was filled with the comfortable silence that had come to define their evenings together. Lily rested her head on Dr. Alexander's shoulder, feeling the warmth of his presence beside her. "Do you ever think about how much has changed?" she asked, quietly, her fingers tracing the edge of his hand. Dr. Alexander smiled softly, his eyes glancing down at her. "All the time," he replied, his voice filled with affection. "Sometimes it feels like it happened in the blink of an eye. We went from two people trying to figure things out to this. A family." Lily chuckled softly. "It's crazy, right? If you told me a few years ago that we'd be here, I'd never have believed it. I thought our relationship was built on an accident, that we were just going through the motions." Dr. Alexander turned his head to look at her, his eyes filled with sincerity. "And now?" he asked. Lily took a deep breath, her gaze focused on the soft flicker of the flames. "Now I see that everything, even the unexpected parts, led us here. We've built something real. Not just for Amelia, but for us, too. I don't think I realized how much I needed this. How much I needed you." Dr. Alexander's heart swelled with emotion as he looked at her. "I needed you too," he said softly. "When we first got together, I didn't know what I was doing. I was scared, uncertain, but now, I can't imagine life without you. Without this family." They sat together in silence, allowing the weight of the moment to settle over them. It wasn't often that they had time to reflect on how far they had come, and the realization that they had truly built something strong together was a feeling neither of them took for granted. They had worked hard for this. They had fought for it, and now, they had something worth holding on to. "I think about the future a lot," Lily said after a while, her voice steady. "I know things won't always be easy. Life never is. But I want to keep building this, step by step. I want to grow with you, through the good and the bad." Dr. Alexander nodded, his hand gently squeezing hers. "I feel the same way," he said. "We've faced so much together, and we've come out stronger. We've learned how to communicate, how to compromise, how to be better for each other. I know the future won't always be perfect, but as long as we're in this together, I know we can handle anything." As the days turned into months, and the seasons changed, Lily and Dr. Alexander continued to navigate the complexities of life with a sense of purpose. Amelia was growing into a bright and curious child, and as her parents, they were learning to guide her with love and patience. They had become a team, not just in the context of their marriage, but in everything they did. Their home was filled with laughter, love, and the occasional chaos that came with raising a child. But through it all, they had each other. One afternoon, as they sat at the kitchen table with cups of coffee, discussing the plans for the upcoming weekend, Lily looked across the table at Dr. Alexander. "What do you think the next chapter of our lives will look like?" she asked, her eyes filled with curiosity. Dr. Alexander smiled, his gaze thoughtful. "I think it will be full of surprises," he said. "But I know whatever comes next, we'll face it together, just like we always have." Lily smiled, feeling a sense of peace in her chest. The uncertainty that once plagued her thoughts had faded. She had found her place, and that place was here, with Dr. Alexander and Amelia, building a life that was filled with love, understanding, and the knowledge that they had already overcome so much. It wasn't the life she had planned or imagined, but it was the life she had chosen, and it was perfect in its own way. As the years passed and their family continued to grow, Lily and Dr. Alexander would face many more challenges, but they would do so side by side, stronger than ever. And when they looked back on the journey they had taken together, they would see not just the struggles and the obstacles, but the beautiful, messy, imperfect love that had brought them to this point. They had built a life together, and that was enough. In the end, they both knew that as long as they had each other, they could face whatever came their way. As the years passed, the changes in Lily and Dr. Alexander's lives were subtle but significant. Their relationship had evolved in ways neither of them could have predicted when they first met. They had weathered storms together, both individually and as a couple, and emerged stronger for it. The small moments of connection they shared, quiet evenings, shared glances, spontaneous laughter, became the foundation of a life built not on grand gestures, but on simple, everyday acts of love. Amelia, now a lively 5-year-old, had become the center of their world. She was a constant reminder of the love and commitment that had brought them together. Watching her grow, learning new things every day, brought a sense of fulfillment that Lily hadn't known she needed. She and Dr. Alexander often marveled at how quickly time passed, how fast Amelia had grown, and how much they had grown as a family. But with each passing year, they had also learned to appreciate the quiet moments, the times when life slowed down enough for them to simply enjoy being together. One afternoon, as the three of them sat in the backyard enjoying the warm sunshine, Lily couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. She had just returned from a morning jog, her body feeling energized, and now they were all lounging in the grass, Amelia happily playing with her toys. Dr. Alexander was reading a book, his glasses perched on the edge of his nose, and Lily found herself watching him for a moment, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. It had been a long time since she had felt that sense of doubt, that nagging feeling that had once haunted her. She had learned to trust him, to trust their relationship, and to trust the life they were building together. They were partners, in every sense of the word. "I'm so glad we're here," Lily said, breaking the silence. Dr. Alexander looked up from his book and smiled, his eyes warm with affection. "Me too," he said. "It's hard to believe how far we've come." He closed the book and set it aside, turning his full attention to Lily. "I was thinking about what you said the other day, about how much has changed, about how much we've grown. I'm really proud of us." Lily smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "We've worked hard for this," she said, her voice soft but filled with certainty. "And we've come a long way." "We have," he agreed, his voice sincere. "It hasn't always been easy, but we've built something real here, something that matters." They sat in a comfortable silence for a few moments, watching as Amelia giggled, chasing after a butterfly that had fluttered by. Lily looked at Dr. Alexander, her mind racing with all the thoughts she had been carrying for weeks. She had been wanting to ask him something that had been lingering in her heart. "Alex," she began slowly, "do you ever think about the future? About where we're headed?" Dr. Alexander turned to face her, his expression thoughtful. "Of course I do," he said quietly. "I think about it all the time. I think about our family, our future together, and what we want for Amelia. I want to make sure we give her the best life possible, but I also want us to keep growing as a couple too. We've come so far, and I know we have so much more to look forward to." Lily nodded, her heart full. "I feel the same way. I want to keep building this life with you, but I also want to make sure we're not losing ourselves in the process. We've worked hard to get to this point, and I don't want to take it for granted." Dr. Alexander reached out and took her hand, his grip warm and steady. "We won't," he promised. "We'll keep taking it one step at a time, together. There's still so much to explore, so much to experience. And I want to do that with you. And with Amelia," Lily added, smiling. "Yes," he said, his eyes lighting up. "With Amelia." As the afternoon turned into evening, they all went inside, Amelia excitedly showing her parents the new picture she had drawn for them. The house felt alive with love, filled with the sounds of family, and Lily couldn't help but marvel at the life they had created. It wasn't the perfect picture she had once imagined, but it was perfect in its own way. The love they shared was imperfect, yet real. It was a love built on mutual respect, understanding, and compromise. They had learned to communicate better, to support each other through the highs and lows, and to cherish the quiet moments as much as the loud ones. As the days passed, Lily continued to find new ways to appreciate the small victories they had achieved. They had made it through the toughest parts of their journey, and now, they were simply living. And that was enough. Their future, though still uncertain, felt like it was in good hands. They had each other, and they had built a solid foundation to stand on. They didn't need grand gestures anymore. What mattered was the everyday love that they showed one another. Whether it was a touch of the hand, a shared smile, or the quiet moments of togetherness, they had found what truly mattered. Life, they had realized, wasn't about perfection. It was about finding joy in the journey, no matter what it looked like. And as they watched Amelia play and laugh, they knew that they had created something beautiful, something that was theirs, and they would continue to cherish it every day. The days continued to unfold in the same gentle rhythm, with each one bringing small, meaningful moments that filled Lily's heart with joy. Amelia was thriving, growing more independent with each passing day, and it amazed Lily how quickly time flew by. The days when Amelia was just a baby seemed like a distant memory, replaced by a little girl who was full of questions and curiosity about the world around her. Dr. Alexander, too, had settled into the role of a father more naturally than Lily had ever expected. He was deeply involved in Amelia's life, from taking her to the park on weekends to reading her bedtime stories every night. It was these moments, small but profound, that made Lily feel secure in their future. It wasn't perfect. There were still challenges and moments of stress, but it was real, and they were in it together. Lily couldn't help but smile as she watched Dr. Alexander play with Amelia in the yard one sunny afternoon. He had always been the reserved, work-focused type, but the sight of him laughing and getting down on the ground to play with their daughter was one of the most beautiful things she had ever witnessed. It was a reminder of how far they had come. Their journey together had been anything but easy, but it had been worth it. They had built a life, a family, and the bond between them was undeniable. As the months went on, Lily and Dr. Alexander continued to learn more about each other. They had long since let go of the uncertainty and fears that had plagued their relationship in the beginning. They had worked through their issues, communicated better, and grown together. Yet, Lily couldn't help but feel that there was more to discover. There was always more to learn, more to understand about each other and the world they had created together. One evening, as they sat down to dinner, a moment of quiet settled over the table. Amelia had already finished her meal and was now playing with her toy blocks, leaving Lily and Dr. Alexander alone for a rare moment of conversation. "I've been thinking about the future," Lily began, her voice soft, yet filled with curiosity. Dr. Alexander looked at her, setting down his fork and giving her his full attention. "What about the future?" he asked, his eyes filled with interest. "I don't know," she replied, her gaze drifting over to Amelia, who was now stacking her blocks. "I just feel like we've worked so hard to get here, and I want to make sure we're always moving forward, together." Dr. Alexander smiled, understanding the depth of her words. "We've come a long way," he said, "and I think we're on the right path. We've built something special with Amelia, and that's something to be proud of." Lily nodded, but her mind was still racing with thoughts. "It's not just about Amelia," she said quietly. "I think we need to make sure we're taking care of ourselves too, as a couple. I want us to continue growing, not just as parents, but as partners. It's so easy to get caught up in everything else, but I don't want us to lose sight of what we have." Dr. Alexander reached across the table and gently took her hand. "You're right," he said, his voice steady. "We've been so focused on the day-to-day, on the responsibilities of being parents and keeping everything running smoothly. But we can't forget about each other. I promise, we'll keep nurturing this, our relationship, just like we've nurtured Amelia." Lily's heart swelled at his words. She had always feared that they would lose the connection they had worked so hard to build, but hearing him speak with such understanding and commitment made her feel more secure than ever. "I just want to make sure we're still growing together," she said, her voice soft. "I don't want us to wake up one day and realize we've drifted apart." Dr. Alexander squeezed her hand gently. "We won't. We've built a strong foundation, and we'll keep building on that. I promise." As the evening went on, they continued to talk, sharing their hopes, their dreams, and their fears. It was a conversation they had needed, a chance to reconnect on a deeper level, and for the first time in a long while, Lily felt a renewed sense of confidence about their future. The love they had for each other was strong, and it wasn't going anywhere. They had come this far, and they would continue to grow together, hand in hand. In the days that followed, they made an effort to carve out more time for each other. They planned date nights, small getaways, and even simply spent time sitting together after Amelia had gone to bed, talking about their day. It wasn't about grand gestures or big moments. It was about the little things, the quiet moments of connection that made their relationship strong. They weren't perfect, and they still had their struggles, but they were learning to embrace those imperfections and work through them as a team. Their love had evolved, just as they had. It was no longer just about the thrill of new beginnings, but about the depth of a shared life, a life built on understanding, patience, and unwavering commitment. And as Lily looked at Dr. Alexander, watching him interact with Amelia, she knew that they were exactly where they were meant to be. The future, though still full of unknowns, felt bright. They had each other, and that was enough. Together, they would continue to build a life full of love, laughter, and the promise of always moving forward. As the years passed, life continued to unfold in ways that neither Lily nor Dr. Alexander could have anticipated when they first started this journey together. Their bond had only deepened, growing from something born out of necessity to something truly meaningful. They had navigated the complexities of parenthood, love, and the daily struggles of life, and now they were standing together at a place where the past and the future merged into one. Amelia, now a vibrant 7-year-old, was thriving, and every milestone she hit filled their hearts with pride. The days when she had been a baby felt like a lifetime ago, and yet, watching her grow into an inquisitive, kind-hearted young girl made every sacrifice, every difficult moment, worth it. Dr. Alexander was still the man she had fallen in love with, reserved at times, but deeply caring in ways that mattered most. They had their own rhythm now, their own routines that blended together effortlessly. Amelia was a central part of their world, but they had learned to nurture their relationship alongside the responsibilities of parenthood. They made time for each other, even if it meant small, quiet moments after the day had ended, or shared looks during family dinners that conveyed everything they didn't always say aloud. It wasn't always easy. Life had a way of throwing curveballs at them, and there were still times when the demands of their careers and daily routines left them feeling stretched thin. But through it all, they had learned to communicate better, to be patient, and to appreciate the importance of their partnership. One evening, as they sat together in the living room after putting Amelia to bed, Dr. Alexander looked over at Lily, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You know," he said, his voice low and contemplative, "I've been thinking about how far we've come. We've been through a lot together, and sometimes it feels like it happened so fast. But then I look at you, look at us, and I realize how strong we are, how much we've built." Lily smiled, feeling warmth in her chest at his words. "I've thought about that too," she replied. "It's like we've grown into something I didn't even know I wanted. I didn't expect this life, but now that we have it, I wouldn't change a thing." Dr. Alexander reached for her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "Neither would I," he said. "This is our life. The one we've created, the one we've fought for." There was a quiet understanding between them in that moment, a silent acknowledgement of everything they had been through and everything they had built. Their journey hadn't been smooth, but it had been theirs, and that made all the difference. They had learned the value of resilience, of showing up for each other even when life was difficult, and of appreciating the simple joys that often went unnoticed in the rush of daily life. As the evening wore on, they continued to talk, sharing their thoughts on the future, the hopes they had for Amelia, and the dreams they still held for themselves as a couple. It wasn't a conversation about grand ambitions or plans for the next few years. It was about the quiet, intimate moments that made their relationship strong, the small gestures, the shared laughter, the comfort of knowing they were in this together. "Do you ever think about what's next?" Lily asked, her voice soft but steady. "Like, what we'll do when Amelia is older, when she doesn't need us as much?" Dr. Alexander looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "I think about that sometimes, but I don't worry about it. We'll always need each other, no matter where life takes us. And I think we'll always find new ways to grow together." Lily nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. She had worried about this in the past, that the transition to a new phase of life would somehow diminish the connection they shared. But now, hearing Dr. Alexander's words, she realized that their bond wasn't dependent on Amelia's age or the stage of their lives. It was built on a foundation of trust, respect, and love, and that foundation would always hold strong. As the night came to a close and the quiet of their home enveloped them, Lily felt a deep sense of contentment. They had made it through so much, and yet, here they were, stronger than ever. The future was still uncertain, and there were many unknowns ahead, but one thing was clear: they were in this together. They had built a life, a beautiful, imperfect life, and they would continue to build it, one day at a time. In the months and years to come, they would face new challenges, new milestones, and new adventures. But they knew, no matter what the future held, they would face it hand in hand, a family, with love as their guiding force. It wasn't always easy, but it was always worth it. And as Lily looked at Dr. Alexander, her heart full, she knew that their love had only grown stronger, and that whatever came next, they would be ready for it, together. Inevitably, Time continued its steady march forward, carrying Lily, Dr. Alexander, and Amelia into a new chapter of their lives. The little girl who once clung to Lily's legs had grown into a confident child, full of curiosity and warmth, a reflection of the love that had shaped her world. Their home had become a place filled with laughter, routines, and memories that would last a lifetime. Through it all, Lily found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. What began as a mistake, a moment she once feared would define her life forever, had transformed into something beautiful. Not perfect, but real. She had once believed that her life would always be measured by the choices she made, by the circumstances she could not control. But now she understood that life was also shaped by the courage to grow, to love, and to welcome the unexpected. Dr. Alexander had always been steady, a quiet force in their lives. Over the years, he had become not just a partner, but a man who showed his love through action. The long nights spent holding their daughter during storms, the way he always remembered the smallest things that mattered to Lily, the consistency with which he showed up day after day. These were the moments that became the foundation of their relationship. And now, as they walked through a park on a warm spring afternoon, Lily felt a peace she had never known before. Amelia ran ahead on the path, her laughter echoing through the trees, while Lily and Dr. Alexander walked hand in hand behind her, the world around them bathed in gentle sunlight. "She is growing up so fast," Lily said, her voice filled with both pride and a hint of longing. "I feel like I blinked, and suddenly she is not a little girl anymore." Dr. Alexander nodded, watching Amelia with a soft smile. "I know, but she is growing into someone amazing. And that is because of you." Lily laughed softly, shaking her head. "Because of us," she corrected. He looked at her, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Yes," he agreed quietly. "Because of us." They reached a small clearing where Amelia had stopped to pick flowers, proudly holding them up for her parents to admire. Lily knelt down to help her gather the delicate petals, feeling the simple sweetness of the moment settle deep in her heart. When they returned home that evening, the house was warm and welcoming. After dinner, they sat together in the living room, watching Amelia play with her building blocks on the carpet. Lily leaned against Dr. Alexander, her head resting on his shoulder, feeling the steady comfort of his presence. "I have been meaning to tell you something," he said softly, his voice breaking the comfortable silence. Lily straightened slightly, turning her gaze toward him. "What is it?" He took a slow breath, his eyes earnest and full of sincerity. "I have been thinking a lot about the future, about everything we have built, everything we have overcome. And I realized something." Lily waited, her heart steady but curious. "I do not just love the life we have built," he continued gently. "I love you. Completely. Not because of our past, not because of what happened, but because of who you are and the way you have changed my life. I want to spend the rest of my life showing you how much you mean to me." Lily felt her breath catch, her heart swelling with emotion. She had always known that he cared, that he had grown to love her, but hearing the words spoken so openly, so clearly, made something inside her shift. "Alex," she whispered, her voice thick. "I love you too. I have for a long time. I just never knew when to say it." He reached for her hand, lifting it gently to his lips. "Then let me say this," he murmured. "I want us to renew our vows. Not because we have to, not because of our past, but because I want to marry you for real this time. I want to stand before our daughter, before everyone who matters, and promise you the life you deserve." Lily felt tears fill her eyes, tears that were not born of sadness, but of joy so deep it touched her soul. "Yes," she breathed. "Of course yes." Amelia, who had been quietly building her tower, looked up and asked, "What is happening?" Lily laughed through her tears and held her daughter close. "Something wonderful," she said softly. The months that followed were filled with preparations for a small ceremony in their backyard, surrounded by the people who had supported them throughout their journey. On the day of the vow renewal, the sun shone brightly, casting a warm glow over the garden. Lily walked down a simple aisle lined with white flowers, her heart pounding with a kind of joy she had never known. Dr. Alexander stood at the end, his eyes filled with emotion as he watched her approach. When they took each other's hands, the world seemed to fall away. They spoke vows that came from the depths of their hearts, vows of love, of forgiveness, of commitment, and of gratitude for the journey that had brought them here. And as they sealed those vows with a kiss, Amelia clapped her hands and ran to them, wrapping her arms around both of their legs. It was a moment that sealed their future as a family, not defined by mistakes, not bound by the past, but shaped by love, resilience, and the quiet courage to choose each other every single day. In the years that followed, Lily and Dr. Alexander continued to grow together, choosing love in every season of their lives. Their home was filled with laughter, warmth, and a sense of belonging that came from knowing they had fought hard for a second chance. And in the end, their greatest lesson was simple: love is not destiny. Love is choice. Love is action. And the most beautiful stories are often the ones that begin with unexpected beginnings and end with a promise kept. Together, they built a life filled with grace, healing, and everlasting commitment. And it was exactly the life they were meant to share. In this touching and inspiring journey, discover a story about love, resilience, and second chances. Follow the evolving relationship between Lily and Dr. Alexander, a couple who were brought together by unexpected circumstances, as they navigate the ups and downs of life, parenthood, and the search for true happiness. From initial doubt to a deep, committed love, their journey mirrors many millionaire stories of overcoming challenges and finding success in unexpected places. Through moments of vulnerability, they learn that love is not about perfection, but about making choices and fighting for what matters. As they grow together, they realize that love and family are the greatest rewards in life. This heartwarming tale is filled with lessons that resonate with anyone who has ever faced adversity and wondered if true love could ever be real. As they share quiet moments, laughter, and reaffirm their commitment through a vow renewal, their story becomes a beautiful testament to the power of love. If you enjoy millionaire stories that show how real relationships evolve, this one will inspire you. Through struggles and triumphs, Lily and Dr. Alexander prove that love is about showing up for each other every day. Their tale is one that will remind you that love is not just a fairy tale. It's a choice that is worth fighting for, no matter the obstacles that life throws your way. As they move forward, their bond grows stronger, and their love deepens, showing that the most beautiful stories come from the most unexpected beginnings. This is one of those millionaire stories that is sure to warm your heart and remind you of the power of a deep connection.